Sagittarius. A lot of money, a funeral, and a wedding in 2025. Sagittarius, have you felt lately that the world is speaking to you in a language only your heart understands? A sudden urge to move, an invisible nudge toward unknown horizons, dreams filled with people and places you have never met but somehow recognize. So, know that it is not a coincidence. The year 2025 is not simply another chapter. It is a soul gateway, carrying 3 pivotal transformations meant specifically for you. A sudden flow of financial abundance, a farewell soaked in sacred sorrow, and a love that feels as if 2 ancient travelers have finally found their way back to each other. These 3 events are not separate. They are deeply intertwined, each unlocking the next part of your evolution. If you stay until the end of this journey, I will show you why you are meant to pass through all 3, and how by doing so you will not just exist, but finally live in a way that honors the vast, wild light inside you. And if you feel even a slight pull in your soul while listening, I invite you to like, share, and subscribe, not for me but for yourself, so that every week you can return here, to a space where your spirit is seen, honored, and gently guided back home. Are you ready, Sagittarius? Then let us begin. Gate 1: Money as a test of freedom. For Sagittarius, freedom is not a want. It is a necessity as vital as breath. You are the wanderer of the zodiac, the seeker whose compass points not to a fixed destination but to the wild unknown. For you, experiences have always mattered more than possessions, journeys more than trophies, meaning more than material comfort. Yet in 2025, the universe will place something unexpected in your path: abundance. Financial opportunities will flow toward you not because you chase them, but because you are finally ready to understand a deeper truth about wealth. Money is not the opposite of freedom. Money in its highest form can be a tool that liberates you and others on a scale you have only dreamed of. It will begin quietly. Perhaps an old investment matures, a project you once believed forgotten finds its champion, an unexpected benefactor appears, or a hidden talent is finally recognized and rewarded. However it manifests, it will come with a silent question from the universe: what will you do with it? For Sagittarius, this is a profound spiritual test. You who have built your identity around non-attachment, around movement and minimalism, may at first feel discomfort. You may wonder if accepting abundance will tether you, weigh you down, or worse, change who you are. You may fear becoming like those you once pitied or judged, those trapped by greed, chained to possessions, lost in the illusion of ownership. But the truth is far more luminous. Money does not corrupt the pure. It reveals them. When financial energy enters the hands of a Sagittarius, it does not become stagnant. It flows. It builds bridges, funds adventures, seeds dreams in the barren places. It brings your ideals into tangible form, so that they no longer live only in your imagination, but take root in the real world where they can touch others. Money for you is not meant to be a crown or a cage. It is meant to be a vessel, a ship to carry your visions farther than your feet alone could ever travel. And yet, even knowing this, you may hesitate. You may question whether you are worthy to receive without strings attached. Sagittarius, how many times have you given freely, joyfully, without expectation of return? How many times have you sacrificed your comfort to help another climb higher, to heal another's wounds? Now, the universe seeks to balance the scales, but first it needs your permission. You must allow yourself to be blessed. You must trust that you do not need to earn every good thing through struggle or prove your worth through suffering. You must believe that you are already enough. I once knew a Sagittarius woman who spent the better part of her youth traveling to forgotten corners of the world, teaching children who had never held a book. She lived with barely more than a backpack and a dream. Then one day, she received an unexpected inheritance from an uncle she barely knew. First, she felt guilty, overwhelmed. "Why me?" she asked. But slowly, she realized that the gift was not meant to chain her. It was meant to empower her. She used the money to build a school, a sanctuary for learning where none had existed before. And in doing so, she expanded her freedom, not diminished it. Sagittarius, in 2025, the universe offers you a similar invitation. But remember, abundance without vision becomes emptiness. Prosperity without purpose becomes burden. Your gift is not only the wealth that may come, but the wisdom to use it in alignment with your true self. When you receive, do not spend just to fill the silence. Do not invest just to mimic others. Ask yourself, Does this choice expand my soul? Does it honor my journey? Does it light a path for others to follow? This is not a time to play small. This is not a time to hide in modesty falsely worn as humility. True humility is not denying your blessings. True humility is receiving them with gratitude and using them to lift the world higher. You are not meant to scrape by, Sagittarius. You are meant to thrive, to live abundantly, not as a captive of wealth, but as its master. To move freely, generously, boldly, carrying your light farther than ever before. Jupiter, your ruling planet, will be especially active in 2025, aligning opportunities that test your readiness to step into a larger life. You will be asked to expand, to risk more, to dream bigger. You will be asked to invest not only in causes outside yourself, but also in the evolution of your own soul. The book Unwritten, the foundation unbuilt, the adventure unstarted. These are the seeds calling for your attention now. Will you nurture them? Will you have the courage to say yes, not just to helping others, but to helping yourself? You may feel tension. Sagittarius is ruled by the legs, by movement. You are used to running, to seeking the next horizon. But this time, some blessings may ask you to pause, to root yourself just long enough to plant something enduring. Will you dare to stay long enough to see the harvest? Will you trust that anchoring a dream does not imprison your spirit, but frees it to grow wider wings? At the end of this first gate, the question is simple, yet life-changing. Will you allow yourself to be abundant? Not for pride, not for vanity, but because your mission, your dreams, your very essence deserve every resource needed to flourish. You were never meant to live small, Sagittarius. You were meant to live vast, wild, and luminous. Let 2025 be the year you say yes, to wealth, to worthiness, to the next great adventure your soul was born to embark upon. Gate to a funeral, a release, not a loss. There are moments in every Sagittarius's life when the road suddenly ends, when the map you have trusted curls into ash, and the horizon you chased disappears into mist. 2025 will bring such a moment, a farewell that will shake something deep within you. But Sagittarius, understand this. It is not a punishment, not a loss in the cruel sense you fear. It is a sacred release, a necessary clearing, a transformation disguised as goodbye. You have always been a traveler between worlds, one foot in the tangible, one in the invisible. You know better than anyone that endings are never truly endings. They are transitions, the shifting of forms, the evolution of spirit. Yet even you, brave as you are, may find yourself caught off guard by the grief that arrives when a chapter closes without warning. Perhaps it will be the passing of a loved one whose guidance once shaped you. Perhaps it will be the death of a dream you nurtured quietly in your heart, or the final goodbye to a version of yourself that no longer fits the life you are called to live. Whatever form it takes, the funeral of 2025 is not meant to leave you empty. It is meant to free you from the silent chains you did not realize you were still carrying. Sagittarius, you carry the fire of hope, but even the brightest flame can be burdened by the ashes of what is no longer alive. This loss will ask you to let go, not out of despair but out of reverence, for the journey, for the love, for the memories that shaped you but are no longer meant to define you. I once knew a Sagittarius man who, after years of pursuing adventure and success, received the news of his father's death. At first, he felt trapped, overwhelmed by guilt for all the words left unsaid, all the miles between them that now could never be crossed. But in the silence that followed the funeral, in the quiet nights under foreign stars, he began to realize something profound. Love does not end with death. Connection does not vanish with distance. What truly matters never dies. It transforms. It lives in the way you carry forward, in the choices you make, in the courage to keep moving even with a heart cracked open. Sagittarius, grief will find you in the quiet spaces. It may creep in through a forgotten song, the scent of a place you once shared, a sudden longing you cannot name. When it does, do not run from it. Do not try to outrun sorrow as if it were a destination you could leave behind. Sit with it. Let it wash over you, through you, until it softens into something holy. Grief is not weakness. It is proof that you dared to love deeply, to care wildly, to live fully. You may find yourself dreaming of someone you thought you had already let go of. You may feel their presence in the rustle of leaves, in the touch of a sudden breeze. Trust those moments. They are not fantasies. They are reminders that the bonds forged in truth do not break. They simply change form. The departed do not leave you. They walk beside you, unseen but unwavering, whispering courage into your soul when you think you have none left. This funeral, Sagittarius, is an initiation. It is the universe asking if you are ready to travel lighter, to stop carrying regrets that no longer serve you, to stop defining yourself by what you lost and start honoring what you still carry. The lessons, the love, the essence. It is easy to romanticize the past, to cling to what was out of fear of what might come. But you were not born to live backward. You were born to move forward, not forgetting but integrating, becoming more whole with every goodbye. There is a profound kind of freedom that comes only after mourning. The freedom to choose again, to dream again, to love again, not as the person you once were, but as the person you are now, wiser, braver, more real. You do not honor those you have lost by clinging to their absence. You honor them by living the kind of life that would make them smile in the beyond. You honor them by stepping into the fullness of your light, knowing they are part of it. In 2025, Neptune and Pluto will create spiritual alignments that thin the veil between worlds. You may feel more sensitive, more attuned to subtle energies. Do not fear this. Embrace it. It is a gift. It means that as you grieve, you are also awakening to deeper truths about existence, about love, about eternity. The more you allow yourself to mourn honestly, the more space you create for something new to be born inside you. Sagittarius, the funeral you experience will not be the end. It will be a sacred clearing, a breaking open of the heart to make room for greater love, greater freedom, greater purpose. And just when you think the sorrow will overwhelm you, you will find a quiet, golden peace. The kind of peace that comes not from forgetting, but from remembering differently, not with chains but with wings. At the end of this second gate, the question is not how much you have lost, but how much you are willing to carry forward in a lighter, freer way. Will you let grief define you or refine you? Will you build altars to your pain, or pathways for your hope? You have always been a traveler, Sagittarius. Now the universe invites you to become something more. A bridge between what was and what can still be, carrying the love that never dies into a future that is waiting for you with open arms. Gate 3, a soul wedding. Two wanderers coming home. After loss strips you down to the core, after you have walked alone through landscapes both desolate and sacred, something unexpected begins to stir. It is quiet at first, almost imperceptible, like the first warmth of sunrise on a long, cold night. Sagittarius, in 2025, after you have released what needed to be set free, the universe will open a third and final gate for you. The reunion of souls, the meeting of a love that feels less like discovery and more like remembrance. Unlike the dramatic loves of youth, unlike the fleeting passions that burned bright and vanished just as quickly, this connection will not announce itself with fireworks. It will arrive in a gaze that lingers just a moment longer than expected, in a conversation where words are less important than the silences between them. It will feel strangely familiar, as if somewhere beyond time and space, you and this soul have crossed paths before, made promises you now remember only as distant echoes in your heart. For Sagittarius, love has often been complicated. You crave freedom so fiercely that you sometimes confuse commitment with confinement. You run not because you cannot love deeply, but because you fear losing yourself in the process. But this time things will be different. Because this time you will meet someone who does not seek to bind you, but to walk beside you. Someone whose presence feels like a vast, open sky, not a cage. Someone who understands that loving a Sagittarius means loving their wildness, their restlessness, their eternal hunger for more. This soul wedding is not about ceremony. It is not about vows spoken before crowds or papers signed before witnesses. It is about two spirits who, after many lifetimes of wandering, finally recognize each other and say without words, "I see you. I know you. I am home with you." It is about a love that does not seek to possess but to accompany. A love that thrives not in controlling, but in encouraging each other's growth. I once knew a Sagittarius woman who spent her life believing that true love was a myth, that no one could ever keep up with her spirit. She traveled the world, built a life of adventure and independence, but somewhere deep inside, she carried a quiet ache, a longing she rarely admitted even to herself. Then, in the most ordinary moment, standing in line at a bookstore, she met a man who looked at her not with expectation but with recognition. It was not love at first sight in the traditional sense. It was older than that. It was a remembering. A returning Sagittarius in 2025, the same possibility waits for you, but it requires a different kind of courage. Not the courage to leave, but the courage to stay. To let yourself be seen not in your victories, but in your vulnerabilities. To let another soul witness the parts of you that have been battered by storms and yet still dare to hope. This is not the kind of love that demands sacrifice of self. This is the kind of love that nourishes self, that strengthens the wings you thought you had to fold away to be loved. You may resist at first. You may question whether you are ready. After all, you have built a life around independence, around not needing anyone. But love, true love, does not arrive to fill a void. It arrives to celebrate the fullness already within you. It does not seek to rescue you from loneliness. It seeks to walk beside you through the landscape you have cultivated with your own hands and heart. And perhaps most importantly, this love will not try to fix your broken places. It will sit with you in them. It will not rush your healing or demand your perfection. It will honor your scars as proof of the battles you have survived. It will remind you that you are not too much, not too restless, not too wild to be loved fully, just as you are. Astrologically, with Neptune's influence softening the heart and Jupiter's blessings expanding your capacity for trust, 2025 sets the stage for a different kind of love story. One that is not written in the language of possession or promises, but in the quiet, steady choice to stay, to nurture, to grow side by side. One that sees your wandering spirit not as a flaw to tame but as a fire to tend together. Sagittarius, ask yourself, are you willing to be loved not for what you achieve, not for how brightly you burn, but simply for being yourself? Are you willing to risk being truly known without armor, without pretense? Because this soul wedding, this sacred meeting, demands nothing less. It asks you to show up, whole and unfinished, brave and afraid, and say, here I am. And when you do, when you allow yourself to be chosen not for your potential but for your presence, you will discover a kind of love that does not chain you but sets you freer than you have ever been. A love that becomes the campfire you return to after every journey. A love that believes in your dreams even when you forget them. A love that holds space for your highest becoming. At the end of this third gate, the question is simple yet profound. Will you dare to stay when love finds you? Will you allow yourself not just to roam but to root, not just to seek but to build? Will you trust that the greatest adventure is not only out there, in distant lands and foreign skies, but also here, in the quiet miracle of two souls choosing each other over and over again? This is the final gift of 2025, Sagittarius. Not just the abundance you receive, not just the grief you survive, but the love you finally allow yourself to welcome, not to complete you, but to walk beside you into a future wider and wilder than you ever dared to imagine. Conclusion, the sacred circle of 2025. Sagittarius, as 2025 unfolds, you will realize that the journey you have taken is not a series of disconnected events, but a sacred circle, carefully woven by the unseen hands of the universe. The money that comes into your life will not simply be a reward, but a tool, asking you to step more fully into your mission, to build the dreams you once thought too distant to grasp. The farewell you experience will not be a cruel severing, but a blessing in disguise, a loving release that frees you from weights you no longer need to carry. And the love that finds you will not arrive to save you, but to walk beside you, a reflection of the home you have been slowly building within yourself. These three gates, abundance, loss, and love, are not separate. They are stages of the same transformation, designed to strip away the illusions you no longer need and reveal the truth that has always been burning quietly inside you. You are not here to live halfway. You are not here to exist merely out of habit. You are here to live fully, to love courageously, to give your wild heart the space it needs to grow into something even more magnificent than you have yet imagined. It will not always be easy. There will be moments when fear whispers that it is safer to stay small, to hold back, to grieve without healing, to love without trusting. But Sagittarius, you did not come here to be safe. You came here to soar. And everything that happens in 2025 will be for one sacred purpose: to remind you of who you are when you are no longer afraid to be fully alive. So when the money comes, say yes, not just to the opportunity but to the expansion of your soul. When the goodbye comes, grieve fully, but then lift your eyes to the new horizon waiting beyond your sorrow. And when love stands before you, open your arms without hesitation, trusting that this time, it is safe to stay, to build, to belong. If you have listened this far, Sagittarius, know that it is not by chance. It is because your soul already recognizes the path ahead. And if this message resonated with you, if some part of your spirit stirred awake while hearing these words, I invite you to like, share, and subscribe, not for me, but for yourself, so that each week you can return to this space where your heart is seen, where your dreams are nurtured, and where the wild, luminous truth of who you are is never forgotten. You were not born just to exist, Sagittarius. You were born to ignite, to inspire, to light the way for others simply by daring to live your fullest life. In 2025, that life is no longer a distant vision. It is here waiting for you to step into it, whole, free, and fiercely alive.